Look, it's a huge discussion, and I do think that the sooner this issue is resolved, the better. But I also think it's important that it be resolved the right way. And I just don't see any gain for the Liberal Party in essentially me-tooing Labor on climate and energy. We all know that Labor's energy policy is driven by its emissions obsession. As long as you are running the electricity system to reduce emissions rather than to produce affordable and reliable power, you're going to have a huge problem. And just at the moment, Labor's net zero straitjacket and its impact on the power supply, it's driving up prices, it's hurting people's standard of living, it's basically destroying our remaining heavy industry, and yet you can't credibly attack Labor's energy policy if you accept the net zero straitjacket, which is at the heart of it. So I think that the coalition has to dump net zero. I applaud the National Party for quickly coming to that position, and I think that if the coalition is to flourish, it is important that the Liberal Party essentially adopt the same position so it is a united team going forward. Now, as well as dumping net zero, they've also got to come up with a sane energy policy, and as we've discussed before, Dan, I think it's pretty obvious what that policy should be. First, no more coal-fired power stations to close without a reliable alternative. Second, get gas out of the ground at express speed, because we've got plenty of gas. We just aren't allowed to extract it. Third, no subsidies for new renewables, because if they really are cheap, they don't need subsidy. And fourth, we've got to end the nuclear ban. Not that I think that nuclear power is necessarily going to be with us anytime soon, but eventually it will. And that starts with getting rid of the legal ban.
Isn't the other thing as well that dump net zero, but also campaign on it? So my fear is that they'll dump it, but then they won't talk about it. And that would have been like you saying when you became leader, we're not doing a carbon tax, but I'm not going to talk about it until the election. That would also be, I would say, a disaster for the party and for the country.
Well, I agree with you, Dan. You can't have positions that you don't then go out and articulate and defend. One of the weird things about the previous term of Parliament was that Peter Dutton, to his great credit, resolved to repeal the nuclear ban and to have a program of nuclear power in Australia. Inevitably, he was assailed on the grounds of cost and safety. What I would have done, were I in that position, I would have been going to the Lucas Heights nuclear reactor every other day, standing outside the gates with the cameras saying, look, this thing has been here for 60 odd years. There's never been an accident. It's within a few hundred metres of houses. There's never been any radiation. No one is walking around here turning green or mutating. The fact is, nuclear power is more than feasible in this country. We built the Lucas Heights reactor. Within about 5 years, we went from nothing to something. It's not impossible. This is one of the big problems with modern Australia, Dan. We think small. We reckon that doing anything other than what we're currently doing, and even that we want to scale back, we think that anything other than what we're currently doing is somehow beyond us. Well, we didn't get to be the world's richest per capita country within 100 years of the foundation of modern Australia by thinking small. We got to be rich, we got to be free, we got to be fair, because people had to go, and that's the spirit that we need again. So, yes, Dan, we need to have a strong and clear policy which is a contrast to Labor's, a definite contrast to Labor's, and we've got to campaign on it every day between now and the next election. Because if you are challenging the zeitgeist, if you are going up against the leftist mainstream media, against all these rent-seeking behemoth capitalists. You don't win by being meek. You only win by being bold.
But the other thing I want to get your opinion on is the broader architecture of this, which is the Paris Climate Agreement. And there are some who are saying, let's get out of it. That's my view. I don't think we should be in the Paris Climate Agreement because I think we should set our own policy. There are some, who might be considered, quote unquote, moderates who would say, well, if you ditch net zero, you're therefore in violation of the Paris Climate Agreement. Now, that's not true. If you read the Paris Climate Agreement, it doesn't say net zero. There's some reference to emissions need to be offset and so forth, but it strictly speaking doesn't talk about net zero. But that is an argument that's being made. The Paris Climate Agreement also explicitly allows nations to leave after 3 years of signing up. So you can, I think it might be Article 26, you can leave it and technically be compliant with it because it's allowed for in the treaty, which is another point that's not brought up. But anyway, I'm interested in your thoughts on Paris and net zero. What do you reckon about that nexus?
Well, look, I've heard some people within the coalition saying that we would be an international pariah if we left Paris. Well, the fact is Trump has left Paris twice now, and I don't see the United States as an international pariah. Sure, lots of people criticise the policies of the current administration, but you cannot say that a country that isn't in Paris or pulls out of Paris is somehow an international pariah. So let's scotch that furphy at the beginning. My understanding is that it's more than possible to dump net zero and not have to abrogate the Paris Agreement. First, nowhere is the term net zero used in the Paris Agreement. Second, the Paris Agreement is not mandatory, it's not binding anyway. And third, as you've just pointed out, Dan, my reading of the Paris Agreement is that it commits signatories to carbon neutrality sometime in the second half of this century. Well, carbon neutrality by 2099 is a lot different to net zero by 2050. I mean, net zero by 2050 is utterly impossible without a complete economic and social upheaval. Carbon neutrality by 2099, well, that might be doable. And frankly, we should not do anything to reduce emissions that costs jobs, that drives industries offshore, and which hurts families' standard of living.